It's not often that I talk about an iPhone here on this channel as someone who has never used an iPhone, but as I do cover folding phones, I think we have an interesting reason to do exactly that. The iPhone Fold is heavily rumored. There's been tons of leaks and speculation, and so what I decided to do was throw together an article over here on shanecraig.tech where I tried to bring all of the leaks and the rumors together and put them into one place. So we're going to quickly go over everything we think we know about the iPhone Fold. And as you can see here, there's this really cool image. As I was researching this, I came across a YouTube channel. And I'm going to show you this really quickly because I think it's very cool. Bob underscore Oba, I'm not exactly sure how you would actually say that, but they have posted 3 different videos showing concept renders of this iPhone Fold, and what they're showing you is based on the rumors, the leaks, and it's kind of giving you a look at the form factor that this device could have. We're going to talk about the form factor a bit more here in a minute, but this is intriguing even to me. So first off, when is this thing actually coming? There have been rumors for some time, and the date continues to move. And sometimes I think that we kind of get this impression that leakers are just making things up, and sometimes they might be, but sometimes plans just change. When someone reports that X is happening, and then actually, 6 months later, they say it's not X, it's actually going to be Y. It's because it was X at one point, and now it's Y. These are big companies making big plans, and sometimes those plans actually do change. So currently, the thought is it's coming somewhere in 2026. Some people have thought maybe September of 2026, but there have been some recent leaks, some recent rumors. I would show you this from Apple Insider, but their website is currently down because Cloudflare is down. They're saying it might be pushed into 2027. So we still are a little ways out as we do come to the end of 2025. Now, we've also gotten a post from Digital Chat Station on Weibo saying that Apple is still working on making a decision when it comes to their battery supplier. I can scroll down and find this again right here. iPhone Fold, folding screen. Screen is set, exclusively supplied by Samsung. Assembly is fixed by Foxconn. The hinge is still being polished, and the battery, they're still choosing a supplier. This is a fairly reputable leaker. Always feels weird to call people a leaker. Tech tipster sounds a lot better and a lot less weird. What about the design of this device? You kind of got a little bit of a sneak peek at that in that earlier image. We're going to amend a detail or two about that here in this video, but of course it is going to be a book style foldable. So if you are familiar with the Galaxy Z Folds of the world, that's kind of what we're talking about, like a more normal-ish phone that can open up into a tablet. But because of the screen sizes, the aspect ratio might end up making that not quite as true as you would think. So leaks suggest that we are getting a hybrid titanium aluminum frame that could measure as thin as 4.5 millimeters when unfolded and around 9 to 10 millimeters when it is closed, because you're going to have that bezel around the screen. You can't just take 4.5 and double it and say 9, because I would assume Apple's going to do what literally every other foldable OEM has done, and they're going to take the bezel that sits along the edge of the device that sticks up ever so slightly, and they're not going to include that in the measurement for the device. Samsung does that. Google does that. Oppo does that. Honor. No one includes that bezel. So you can't just double it. You got to account for that bezel when it's closed. I know it's weird, but it just is what it is. It's been described as 2 iPhone Airs side by side. But again, not quite, because the screen sizes. On the display size, reports point to a 7.58-inch internal folding screen paired with a 5.38-inch external cover display. Now, at one point, those numbers were a little bit different, but the most recent rumors that are very, very specific coming from, in this instance, the Elec. This is a South Korean publication, if I'm not mistaken, and this is being passed around. The website's very slow to load because of where it is. It's being passed around by some places like 9 to 5 Mac that, kind of should know what's going on. That gives us a device that is going to look very much like this, although maybe slightly different, because these numbers were based on the earlier specifications, the earlier leaked sizes. Those earlier numbers did come from Digital Chat Station as well. They had the inner screen at 7.76 inches and the cover display at 5.49. So not like a huge difference. 7.76, 5.49. Basically, they just got a little bit smaller. Maybe the bezel got thicker. I don't exactly know, but very, very similar to this. So again, if you go back up to this image, and this individual rendered this out based on those screen sizes, assuming, relatively small bezels, this is kind of what you end up with, which is a pretty bizarre looking device. If I let this video play, I mean, again, you take an iPad mini and you fold it over, that's what you end up with. You end up with this like really, really wide phone. Like you guys, I'm sure a lot of you watching this channel are big fans of the original Pixel Fold, the passport style device. Like you're in the right ballpark, but it's an even more extreme version of that because it has to be shorter to be like an iPad mini. And, again, this is just sort of a guess based on leaks. So this may end up being completely inaccurate, but this, like I said earlier, is very intriguing to me in terms of a design. If this is what Apple actually does, it is a complete reversal from what every other OEM has been doing. They're prioritizing the cover display and saying, well, the inner display is going to be kind of squarish because we want the cover display to be like a normal phone. Apple would be saying, we want the inner display to be like an iPad mini, and therefore the cover display is going to be whatever the cover display has to be. It's going to be this kind of squarish, really wide cover display. Now, I've also heard that Apple is working very hard on their hinge to remove the display crease. This is something that I kind of do think at this point is pretty overblown. Like, I think some people get really upset about the crease and some people don't really care. It's something that's visible, if the light hits it correctly. If you're looking straight at it, the crease just isn't really a thing. But apparently Apple really wants to get rid of the crease, and they're working very hard on their hinge to accomplish exactly that. In terms of the cameras, we've also seen leaks, and I need to actually embed my link here. Something got broken there. I'll fix that before you see this video. That there are going to be 4 total cameras. So that means there's a cover display selfie, an inner display selfie, and then 2 cameras on the back. Word is they're both going to be 48 megapixels on the back. We don't know if it's a primary and a tele or a primary and an ultra wide, but apparently only 2 cameras on the back. Basically every other OEM, I think literally every other OEM, is doing 3 cameras. You have an ultra wide and a tele. They may be cutting 1 camera off. I would guess it's probably an ultra wide, and they're going to say you can just digitally zoom 2 or 3x on the primary camera and say, hey, it's like you have 3 sensors. And honestly, it's probably going to be fine. Their processing is very, very good. But speaking of that selfie camera, word is they're not going to be using Face ID because there's just not enough room in there to do that. They're going to be using Touch ID, which those of us in the Android world know as just a fingerprint scanner, and it should be built into the power button on the side of the device like every other foldable. More leaks from Weibo, mobile phone chip experts saying it's probably going to be using an A20 Pro version of that processor, so this thing is going to be very, very fast. We have a leak that I think is, I don't know how much I believe this. This just seems hard for me to believe. I've links to all this down below, but basically this person is saying that the battery they're testing is between 5,000 and 5,500 milliamp hours. The current iPad mini has like a 5,000 milliamp hour battery, so do we really think they're going to be fitting a larger battery than that inside their foldable? I think that's pretty hard to believe, but if they did, that would be, bigger than the Pixel 10 Pro Fold, obviously bigger than the Z Fold 7. It would be very, very impressive. And in terms of price, many analysts are expecting a price around $2,000 to $2,500, somewhere right in the range of, the Galaxy Z Fold 7 and these other foldable devices. And I think that's probably right. It's an Apple foldable. Do we really think it's going to be an inexpensive device? No, of course. It's going to be at least what the Z Fold 7 is, if not a little bit higher. Software is something that we don't really know much about, guys. I mean, we just haven't seen many leaks about this. We know iOS is very good. People love iOS. We know that iPad OS is very good with a lot of different options for multitasking, Windows, and things like that. It's gotten quite good over the last few years from what I have been told. Could we see a device that is basically iOS when it's on this screen and iPad OS when it's on the inner one? Are they going to do some kind of a hybrid approach or something like that? We really just don't know, but it's going to be really, really cool to see how Apple approaches a device like this. Guys, Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Is this the foldable you have been waiting for? I think for some of you that may indeed be the case. What do you think about this form factor, if that is how things actually pan out? Is that something that you like? Is that something that puts you off? Do you hope these renders, these leaks are wrong? Again, hit those comments down below. Subscribe for more content like this, and until next time, stay nerdy, my friends.